August 28, 2020, I saw a YouTube video where a renowned cardiac surgeon said,
"The glazed donut has about half of the sugar content of an apple. The cup of grapes actually has 2 times the sugar content of this Hershey's candy bar. Grapes are a sugar bomb. Give fruit the boot."
At that point, I stopped eating fruit and continued eating candy. I mean, I knew back then that that was a silly thing to do, but I wanted to just try and have less sugar in my diet, and I knew realistically it would be hard for me to give up the candy and easier for me to give up fruit, so I stopped having fruit, and then once I got used to not having fruit in my diet, I then challenged myself to stop having sugar altogether. I just wanted to see if it was possible for me to make it 30 days without any candies, cookies, cakes, ice cream, donuts, and to my surprise, I actually survived, and I never went back to eating processed sugars. Now, I actually continued to not have fruit for an entire year because I thought, well, if fruit has sugar in it and sugar is bad, then surely fruit is trying to kill me, right? Well, it wasn't until August 2021 where I got engaged and we celebrated by having plums. I know, turn up, it's a party. I mean, if you ain't eating plums after getting engaged, did you even really celebrate? Anyway, today's video is all about food tidbits I've heard on the internet, and everything you hear on the internet is true, right? And why I no longer believe certain food opinions. And just overall, this video is going to cover how to know what to eat, since nowadays the internet does a good job of confusing us of what is considered healthy. Okay, let's talk about processed foods, since that's the easiest one to cover. The majority of people will agree. Chips, sodas, candies, cookies, French fries, crackers, cakes, any processed food really isn't that healthy. Why? Because they're highly palatable, so they're very tasty and easy to overeat, though they also have toxic ingredients, food colorings, inflammatory overheated bad fats, refined sugars, lots of chemicals, and a bunch of naughty naughties up in them, and not a lot of goodies. There's not tons of protein, vitamins, minerals, nutrients in these highly processed foods, so they don't really add to health. In fact, they take away from health. I mean, if we just look back 100 years ago, we had a lot less of these processed foods, and we had a lot less heart attacks, strokes, obesity, and diabetes. Pretty much any vegan, carnivore, Mediterranean dieter, keto, paleo, any kind of diet guru you follow, or any doctor, any nutritionist, they'll say processed foods really isn't in our best interest. I don't have to have a PhD or be a scientist in a laboratory testing on lab rats these processed foods. I can pretty much just think, hey, you know what? This donut doesn't have vitamin D, protein, calcium, copper, magnesium, iron, vitamin A. In fact, where did these rainbowy fruity pebbles come from? Did they grow out of a garden? Did they come from an animal? These rainbow fruity pebbles were made from chemicals in a laboratory. These did not grow out of a garden. Now, is having some junk food once in a while the end of the world? No, but you know, the more you can limit it, the better. All right, so if we aren't eating processed junk foods, then we're left to eat the outside aisles of the grocery store. Meat, fish, eggs, dairy, fruits, nuts, and veggies. And now this is where I turn into the bad guy. Unfortunately nowadays, it seems most food has either been dyed, sprayed, poked, manipulated in some shape or form. I want to say it's mostly out of good intentions, as for the most part they are just trying to find ways to increase the shelf life of real food, so that way it can be shipped across the country. But here's the dealio. Farm-raised salmon is manipulated to be more red, as most customers think that if their food is a certain color, then it's healthier. Red meat in the grocery stores is gassed to preserve its color to make customers think that the meat is fresh when in fact it's a little bit old. And of course, cows, pigs, chickens, and fish are fed corn, soy, and grains to make the animals grow quicker and fatten them up, which these 3 crops are sprayed with a lot of pesticides and other chemicals. And then because these animals are eating a diet that is not evolutionary appropriate for their stomachs, they are fed antibiotics and medications. The cows don't want to be eating these foods, so they are given Tums to make their tummies not hurt as much, so they keep eating. Likewise, fruits and veggies are grown for sugar content and size, because who wants to buy a tiny apple when you can get one the size of a softball? Most produce is grown in different countries, and because they have to ship them across the world, the produce is picked off the tree before it's ripe. Some produce is even coated with apeel, which is a tasteless, colorless, odorless coating made from mono and diglycerides, aka hydrogenated soybean and canola oil, put on the outsides of produce to increase shelf life and make the produce appear fresh, when in fact it's most often several months old. On top of that, nowadays, due to monocropping and poor farming practices, the health of our soil isn't what it used to be. The soil has less minerals in it, therefore the produce growing from it also has less minerals in it. There's stats out there that 100 years ago, if our grandparents would have eaten one orange, we would have to eat 7 oranges today to get the same amount of vitamin C, fiber, all the different nutrients in an orange. Today, I'd have to eat 7 in comparison to 100 years ago to the one orange giving me that same equivalent of nutrition. Ice cream used to be raw milk, honey, organic vanilla, and egg yolks. Nowadays, most ice creams include things like pasteurized milk, seed oils, refined sugars, emulsifiers, food dyes, and other artificial ingredients. Traditional bread used to be organic flour, salt, water, olive oil, sourdough starter, and fermented for several days. Nowadays, many breads are made with GMO flour that's refined, bleached with chlorine, containing seed oils, and not fermented. I could go on, but I think you get the point. Most food has been some sort of up in her. So what are we going to do about it? Well, buy from local farmers or farmer markets if you can. Otherwise, just find some peace of mind that we are going to do the best that we can do. So this is why online you're going to see everyone talking smack about different foods, because it's easy to fearmonger and explain all of the horrible things going on in supermarket food. The vegans will say red meat causes cancer, saturated fat will clog your arteries, without any evidence or proof to back this up. There's nothing that proves this. And then the carnivores will say that plants are trying to kill you and poison you. And meanwhile, you're sitting thinking, wait, hold up. How come I know several people in my family, or just thousands of people around the world, who lived to be in their 90s or 100s, very healthy, and they had plants in their diet every day? Yes, plants have anti-nutrients in them. We're talking fruits, vegetables, nuts, legumes, coffee, tea, anything that comes from a plant does have what's called anti-nutrients in them, also known as plant toxins, like lectins, oxalates, phytates. There are these different plant compounds that can cause humans gut distress, skin inflammation, and mental health issues, etc. However, a few years ago, I talked to Dr. Shawn Baker, who is known for being the godfather of the carnivore diet. He made carnivore very popular by going on Joe Rogan's podcast a few years ago. Anyway, I asked Dr. Shawn Baker, why do you think nowadays it seems that more and more people can't tolerate the small amounts of toxins in plants? Like, for example, Jordan Peterson's daughter, Michaela Peterson, she's been eating a carnivore diet for several years. And she says that if she has a little bit of black pepper on her steak, she's going to have more arthritis, she'll be back on medications, her mental health issues get worse. And so, Dr. Baker, why is it that nowadays it seems people have major reactions to the small amounts of toxins in plants? And he said, Lillie, humans should be able to tolerate plant foods. However, nowadays we're exposed to more 5G, radiation, EMFs, vaccines, medications, glyphosate, pesticides, chemicals, canola oil, refined sugars, processed junk foods, alcohol, cigarettes. The list goes on of things that we are exposed to, where nowadays even a baby born into this world, they likely have more of a suppressed immune system and compromised gut in comparison to people in the past. If someone can't tolerate a little bit of black pepper, that's not a signal to me that that person has a really strong, robust immune system. That person to me isn't the gold standard for health. People will say, well, if that diet was so healing and really saved some people's lives, therefore this diet must be the healthiest diet for all people, and I should do that. By all means, I think a carnivore diet can be a really healthy way to eat, and if it's working for you, fantastic. I myself eat a very meat-heavy, animal-based diet. But I'll never forget the first time I spoke with Dr. Ted Naiman, and he said, just because it's possible for people to eat only meat and be healthy doesn't mean it's optimal. Even Mikhaila Peterson has said in several videos she wishes she could have more foods. If she could, she would have more variety, but she can't. And yes, Mikhaila Peterson, she looks fantastic and she's super healthy and she eats a carnivore diet. But then there's also thousands and millions of people who don't eat a carnivore diet, who look good and also are very healthy. I think likely what all these healthy individuals have in common is they're avoiding processed junk food and seeking out nutrition as much as possible. Also, we order a lot of our food from our local farmer, though if you don't have access to quality food and good grocery stores near you, there's so many options for quality food online. We specifically order things like grass-fed beef sticks, wild-caught sardines, mustard, ghee, which is clarified butter, but in my opinion, ghee is way yummier than butter. So we order certain foods that we can't get from our local farmer online through what's called Thrive Marketplace, which is an online membership-based grocery store that has different organic meats, seafood, personal care items, non-toxic beauty supplies. We even order things like our Denafloss, soaps, laundry detergent, dishwasher detergent, all sorts of really clean ingredient household supplies we can order through Thrive Marketplace, which is kind of like an Amazon where it's an online store where you can buy goods, though Thrive's yearly membership fee is less money than Amazon's, where Thrive's yearly membership fee is only $60. And I saved $72 on my first order, and I've saved money every time I've ordered with them. Plus, if you don't save your $60 by the end of the year, Thrive will credit you back the difference. So to me, there's no downside to using Thrive. It's just another option to buy groceries at affordable prices. You can get an additional 30% off your first order plus a free gift up to $60 by using the link in the description, or you can get those same savings by going to thrivemarket.com/Lillie Kane. All right, let's go back to talking about anti-nutrients, also known as plant toxins. One specific toxin in plants is called oxalates, which is most prominent in almonds, blackberries, spinach, sweet potatoes, cacao, rhubarb, and I'll just throw up a list with the foods highest in oxalates. And too many oxalates is most known for contributing to kidney stones and arthritis. That's not an exhaustive list. There's many health implications of having too many oxalates all the time. But then I spoke with Sally Norton and Elliot Overton, who these two, they are like the oxalate experts. Their research and whole life's work is in studying and talking about oxalates. And yet, both of them have foods with oxalates in them. Elliot's like, I have potatoes every day.
And when eaten in low amounts, it's not necessarily going to cause people a problem. So what I would say is that if, someone's only got one kind of source of oxalate in their diet, chances are it's going to be difficult to eat enough of that one food to get massive amounts of oxalate in the diet. If, on the other hand, someone who has a breakfast, they have almond flour toast, almond butter on that, they'd have a whole bowl of berries with that. One of the kind of fads is to make smoothies that someone puts in raw cacao powder, spinach, some other greens into the smoothie. And then for lunch, then they have sweet potato. So you see how it's like a cumulative effect. It's like a conglomeration of all of those things adding up to a massive amount. Whereas if it's just coming from like one or two things, chances are that's not going to be causing massive amounts of these issues. It's probably not even going to be that much of a problem.
For most people, having a little bit should be a non-issue. Having a little bit of nuts shouldn't be catastrophic. Having a little bit of fruit or a little bit of vegetables can be okay. But if someone's eating the only nuts diet and having nuts for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day, yeah, they're likely gonna have some sort of bloating, gas, maybe blood in stool, probably some constipation. You're probably not gonna feel your best eating the only nuts diet. If I was someone eating an only fruit diet and I was just having fruit for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, then sure, that could be a lot of sugar, but I'm not concerned that having 1 or 2 pieces of fruit is a lot of sugar for me. Again, the difference between an apple or fruit and a donut is that the apple is going to have polyphenols, antioxidants, fiber, vitamin C, magnesium, potassium, copper, vitamin B6, whereas a donut doesn't have jack crack-a-lack. I watched a Dr. Gundry, Dr. Mike podcast, and one thing Dr. Mike kept saying was, Dr. Gundry, you keep telling people to avoid eating apples. Meanwhile, the vast majority of people, the majority of people in the population are eating cookies and cakes. How many patients do you have coming into your office who are eating zero processed junk food and yet they're riddled with diabetes and obesity because they're eating too many apples? I think social media is fantastic because we can share our experiences and learn from other people's mistakes, though at the same time, then we overcomplicate food. I say when trying to figure out what to eat, start with real whole foods, and specifically prioritize protein. Protein is so critical for our bones, our muscles, the structure of our bodies, our immune system, and so I tell my clients to get in at least a pound of meat, at least 16 ounces of any kind of meat, chicken, shrimp, fish, bison, elk, ground beef, sausages, any kind of meat, so that by the end of the day, when we add up breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we're at about 16 ounces or a pound of meat. Then after that, depending on age, height, weight, gender, activity level, for the most part, I'm suggesting for my clients to have 16 ounces of meat plus 4 eggs and 1 to 2 cups of dairy a day, whether that be milk, yogurt, sour cream, cottage cheese, heavy cream, any kind of dairy. If you don't tolerate dairy, have more eggs. If you don't tolerate eggs, have more meat. These animal foods are considered bioavailable and complete proteins, whereas things like nuts and legumes, so beans, lentils, and chickpeas, lack one or more of the essential amino acids that the body needs and cannot make. Thereby, these are not considered complete proteins. Now, that doesn't mean these foods are bad and should be avoided. It just means you do have to mix and match and food combine to make them a complete protein, and they don't have as many vitamins and minerals as animal foods. So I tell my clients, get in that 16 ounces of meat, 4 eggs, and 1 to 2 cups of dairy. And then after that, if you're still hungry, then we can talk about these plant proteins as like a bonus. Also, I'm sure me saying 16 ounces of meat, 4 eggs, and 1 to 2 cups of dairy sounds like a lot of food, but it's only 13 to 1600 calories depending on the choice of meat someone's eaten. So if someone has 16 ounces of meat being ribeye, more fatty, then they might be on that higher 1600 calorie range. Whereas if that 16 ounces was coming from leaner meats like shrimp, chicken, turkey, cod, then the calorie number would be closer to 1300, which I never recommend anyone, not even my weight loss clients, to go that low. 1300 is too little calories. So anyway, we start with the 16 ounce of meat, 4 eggs, and 1 to 2 cups of dairy. And then for most people, that's gonna cover a lot of people's protein needs. It's about 140 to 180 grams of protein, again, depending on the kind of meat or dairy that someone's choosing. And so therefore, because we're still so low calorie and we need to increase the calorie, the protein's pretty much covered. Of course, we can still increase some protein for certain individuals, but for the most part, I'm going to be increasing the calories from either more fats or more carbs. Fats and carbs provide the energy for our bodies, and so if I was just eating loads and loads of protein and not enough fats and carbs, I'd likely feel pretty tired, low energy, and want to take a nap. So if we're starting with 16 ounces of meat, 4 eggs, and 1 to 2 cups of dairy, again, that's very low calorie. That's in a calorie deficit, even for my weight loss clients. Therefore, we want to increase some of those calories, either from fats and carbs, or both, or maybe just a little bit of protein. Essentially, if someone doesn't exercise, or if they have blood sugar issues, or if they have diabetes, or if they're trying to heal their hormones, I will dial down the carbohydrate knob and increase the fats, either in the forms of butter, ghee, tallow, chicken skins, bone marrow, pork belly, avocados, cod liver oil, adding coconut oil into coffee or heavy cream, or for people who don't have diabetes and they're more active. Maybe they tend to undereat, then I'll usually turn up the carbohydrate knob and we'll add in some whole food forms of carbohydrates from fruit, honey, milk, potatoes, and maybe white rice. Notice how with both groups of people, I did not say I would increase calories with vegetables, with the exception of potatoes, because most vegetables, with the exception of potatoes, are very low calorie. So if the goal is to increase calories, well, vegetables don't really help us with that goal. I don't even count vegetables in my clients' calorie count because they're just so little calories. I mean, unless you're putting cheese on your broccoli and some butter on your Brussels sprouts, then I would count the cheese and the butter, but most veggies themselves, with the exception of potatoes, are very low calorie. Vegetables mainly add bulk, flavor, color, and variety to the plate. So with the exception of potatoes, I say to my clients, whatever group of people you fall into, whether you have diabetes or not, you can have as many vegetables as you want until it hurts you. Meaning you are having stomach pain and bloating and gas and your psoriasis is getting worse and you're having brain fog and you just don't feel very good. Okay, then I would pull back on the veggies. I myself don't have very many veggies because, well, 2 words, Buddha belly. And they don't really help me in increasing my calories. I think of veggies as just added flavor and good deliveries of fat. So you can add the butter, you can add the cheese, and get in more fat calories that way. I know people like their veggies, so I tell my clients, eat as many veggies as you want until it hurts you. I also offer one-on-one coaching where I help create meal plans, answer more of your questions, and so if you're looking to talk more one-on-one, I'll leave a link to my coaching in the description. By subscribing and liking this video, it helps this message reach more people, so by saying yes to Lillie, you're helping me help more people. I hope you have a happy day, and I'll see you in the next one.